Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Thiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, Where Truth Matters. You can find us on the radio at iacradio.media, where we are Fox News affiliates. You can also find us on television, 182 on Charter. You can also find us syndicated on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. I have Alan Mendenhall with me right now. Alan and I are really good friends, and so we've been doing this for a number of years. And you're like my go-to source here for polls. You know, like how in the world, and I've shared with you several times throughout the years when Obama was running for president. Phil and I were living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I got a phone call and I was being polled. But Ellen, it was the way they were asking the questions. And it was almost a twisted way where it would sound as if I would be voting for Obama. And I just told the person, stop right there. I'm not going to be voting for Obama. I'll let you go. Bye. And I told Phil when I hung up, I said, I guarantee you that got cast as a vote for Obama. I bet it did. It's just the way they would ask the questions, like kind of like, you don't beat your wife? Well, how many times a day do you beat your wife? You know, it's just one of those kind of stupid questions, the way they run everything. But now you got some insight on that. Tell us about it.
Well, I think that the entire reason why the LA Times and the Washington Post, and again, this is speculation on my part, did not endorse Harris last week is because they have seen the polls. They're looking at this electoral map and they realize that Harris can't win. Again, we're a week out, so I could be wrong. But having looked at these poll numbers, I think that's the case. There was a pollster affiliated with Trump on Fox News this morning, and here we are. It's 10:28 as we sit here recording this, so we're just over a week away. And this pollster said that based on their data for early voting, they can project that Trump has won North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona. If that's true, if you look at the swing states being Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, then then this pretty much to me shows that it's a done deal for Trump, especially if, as these polls are indicating, in Pennsylvania, Trump has the edge because Pennsylvania has the most electoral college votes of these swing states. It has 19, and I'm looking at these polls for Pennsylvania, and Trump is up in each one since last Wednesday, October 23rd. He's been winning every one. So whether it's Insider Advantage, Franklin Marshall, Emerson, Trump has the edge. If he wins Pennsylvania, I don't see that there's a path for her. If he's got Nevada and he's got North Carolina, let's see, we'll give him Arizona too. Then this is going to be tough. So if he gets Pennsylvania, there he's at 271. So if he wins Pennsylvania and he does have North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, there's no way for her to win. And that's assuming that Georgia is the toss-up. But I think Georgia goes to Trump. If you give Georgia to Trump, that gives him 287 electoral college votes. Again, he only needs 270. And this is assuming that Ohio doesn't go just fully red. If Ohio goes fully red, then that's putting Trump up in the 287 range. I mean, I think he's got this pretty squared away. The more I play with this map, the less I see Harris having a shot, unless the polls are just off. But you made a really, really good point, which is that in general, the pollster industry is left-leaning. And so they will frame their questions in ways to try to elicit pro-Harris responses in order to give the impression that she has momentum and that she can pull it off. But I think when you saw Anderson Cooper grilling Kamala last week, when you saw the LA Times refuse to endorse, the Washington Post refuse to endorse, my theory, again, it's only a theory, is that they realize that they can't win. And so they are already looking toward the next midterm election, the next presidential election. And they have to start crafting the narrative now, which is, see, we just had a bad candidate. The process was bad. They've got lip reading experts looking at what happened at the Kennedy funeral from last week between Biden and Obama. And what the lip readers are saying is that Biden said something like, she's not a stronger candidate as me. And Barack Obama saying, yeah, she's not. And if that's also true, it's more evidence that the Democrats are alive to the reality that this election is lost already. Maybe I'm entirely wrong, and this interview will look foolish in 1 week, but that is the way the numbers are looking at this moment.
Yeah, but I think you're on to something. So let me ask you a question, because for the first time in our lives, Phil and I voted early because we're not going to be in the state. We're going to be on a trip. So we did that. I was a little apprehensive. I was a little nervous about that. Will I wind up being a Kamala voter when I actually voted for Trump? That kind of thing. But it went to the county, so I know where it is, and I know that we counted. So do you think the Democrats actually gave us a gift by talking us into early voting? Think about that.
Possibly. I mean, I think the Republicans understand now that they have to beat the drum for turnout. They've got to get turnout. They've got to exercise every vehicle available to them in order to get votes in, and they're going to use them too. I think in states like North Carolina, we'll see. I mean, the hurricane devastation and everything else was rough in North Carolina, and I think it made FEMA look terrible. I think it made the Biden administration look terrible. It's not really clear who's in charge. Elon Musk came in to try to give private relief to residents of North Carolina, and the federal government turned him away. I think that type of stuff looks really, really bad. And of course, North Carolina is a swing state with 16 electoral votes. Electoral college votes, excuse me. I just don't think that the Biden-Harris administration played that well at all. And it's still so unusual to have this situation where a vice presidential candidate is running and the current sitting president is not. And if Biden was a weak candidate, but over time had proven in the last election and in the last primary that he was a stronger candidate than Kamala, and we can see as support is sort of dropping for her right now, that the longer people have to get to know her, the more she talks, the more people don't like her. And I think that's why here we are, however many days into her nomination, into her candidacy, that she still hasn't done a formal press release. She is not good at handling these questions. Anderson Cooper grilled her last week, and she provided sloppy answers. She does not know how to answer questions under pressure. Part of the reason is because, as I said earlier, she really doesn't have principles in the way that Donald Trump has principles. You may not like his principles, you may not like the policies he stands for, but he knows what he believes and why he believes them, whereas Kamala is finger in the wind, trying to figure out, what am I supposed to say in order to get votes? Oh, I'm supposed to be a secure border today, and never mind that my entire career I've been against that. Today, that's what I'm supposed to be. And so she's disingenuous. People don't believe what she says. We've got commercials of her talking about providing transgender sexual reassignment surgery for inmates, and then she'll deny that was the case. She'll deny that she was the border czar. She'll deny all these things when the facts show otherwise. With Trump, you may not like his tariffs. I actually don't like his tariffs. I'm a free market person, but you know where he is. You know what he's going to say. I love that he was talking last week about eliminating the federal income tax. We've never had a presidential candidate in my lifetime put something like that on the table. That's a big deal. Even Ron Paul tweeted out, "Now this would really make America great again." that policy.
I mean, I have no doubt whatsoever. Okay, so this is what they're running on. They only have one platform, only one, and that's abortion. So I'm going to put it to you this way. Let's pretend I'm a woman who has had several abortions, and I'll probably have more. Just pretend, okay? So, but then I'm having a hard time making ends meet. I can't pay my rent or my house payment. I can't pay my car payment. I can't buy groceries because, you got to admit it, under the current administration, I'm just telling you, people are having a hard time paying bills. They really are.
Absolutely. And the
And
numbers
so
don't. Oh, go
if
ahead.
yeah, but if I've got two platforms to choose from, one is abortion and one is can I live? Can I make enough money to pay bills? I'm going to choose the one where I can pay my bills. I'm sorry. I'll just go to the state that will let me have an abortion.
No doubt about it. And even with the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates, the expectation was that, housing market was going to start booming again, but none of that actually occurred. And in fact, homes are not selling still. Inflation is still a problem, and people are still struggling. At the gas pump, at the grocery store, food prices remain high. And even if you say, okay, yeah, inflation has reduced a little bit, and we're not seeing numbers like we saw. Well, we still have felt realities that are holdovers, because if I've been under strain from inflation for 3 years, I'm not all of a sudden going to have new money in my pocketbook to spend when I'm, in a hole for what I've been in at the time. We still have issues with student loan crisis. We still have issues with the border. We still have all kinds of serious economic problems left over from COVID. I mean, the supply chain issues have not entirely corrected either, and so we're not where we ought to be as a country, and that situation lends itself to the sort of new slogan that Trump introduced in Madison Square Garden last night, which is "Trump will fix it," because I do think he has.
He's got the momentum.
He's got the momentum. He definitely has the momentum right now, for sure. In fact, I'm going to pull this up. This is a demographic shift. This is a graph I'm looking at. And Trump and Harris support where the gains have been made. They're overwhelmingly, this is since just 10/25, October 25th, so 3 days ago. Trump has made inroads of 14% shift among high school graduates, an 8.1% shift among blacks, an 8% shift among those 65 and older, a 2.1% shift among Republicans, because there were still some, never Trumpers out there, a 5-point shift among suburban people. I mean, it is overwhelmingly shifting towards Trump. And really where Harris is enjoying any sort of shift is primarily among people with, high education levels, like in order degree attainment, and females. And I think the female issue is really what you just described, which is the abortion issue. And again, that can't be a factor, because after the Dobbs decision, everything is now removed to the state. It's a state policy issue. So it doesn't make any sense for either Harris or Trump to be running on this issue, because they're not going to be able to do anything about it. They're not governors.
It's just a stupid issue.
Or they're not running for state legislature. Like this is the fact that this is an issue that Harris is emphasizing is strange, because she's emphasizing an issue she can really do nothing about.
Well, I know some liberals who have said things like, well, Trump just wants to be a dictator. And then I will say, well, didn't he have 4 years to become a dictator? We wouldn't even be having this election had he been what you said he would. And then they'll go, oh, yeah. I mean, people are beginning to kind of, and I want to say this, not every Democrat is stupid. And also not every Republican is bright, because we got some folks out there that are rhinos. And so not as many, I don't think, there used to be. I think people are beginning to see the light now. But the whole point is people really, at the end of the day, they're going to cast their vote on their pocketbook. I believe that more than anything. I mean, have all the abortions you want. I'm not going to say it's your business. If you want to have one, go have it. Just go. You have to go to another state. Can't do it here. But just go across the state line and get it. But be able to pay your bills. I mean, because I don't want to see anybody on the streets. I mean, I just don't. I want everybody to be successful.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to live in a society with a booming economy. Everybody wants to improve their station in life. Grandparents want lives for their children and grandchildren to be better. Parents want lives for their children to be better than theirs was. I mean, that's generally the trend in history. We all want things better for our children than what we had it. And I believe that the millennial generation does not feel that they have enjoyed the economic successes that their parents had. I think they all feel worse off. I'm a millennial. I'm 41 years old. I'm technically a millennial. So even Gen Z, they feel as if they're still living in their parents' basements and out of a student loan debt, can't find jobs, can't buy houses, delaying marriage, delaying children. These are effects of economic policy more than anything else. Now, I happen to believe that sound economics tends to flow from good culture, and that, for example, a culture that is virtuous and moral is one in which the free market will enjoy the most success. If you have free markets, but the people are just awful, if you have free markets in a den of thieves and criminals, they're not going to make good use of their freedoms because they won't enjoy the institutional faith and trust that's necessary for commerce and exchange to take place. Forming contracts is irrelevant if you anticipate nothing but breaches. Doing business with people you don't trust is not as constructive as doing people that you can trust and rely on. And so there's a lot to be said about culture and economic success in culture.
There are a number of people who I know atheists. I know some. And even though they're atheists, now I believe in God, Jesus Christ, my Savior. But a lot of people don't. But even those people would rather hire someone in their business who believes in the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not steal, which means that you're not going to steal from my company. That's pretty big. So it's little things they are saying. Apparently they're trying to attract the atheists, people who want abortions. They're trying to attract that crowd. But even atheists want good people within the organization. So let me ask you a question. This is something Kamala said, which was completely stupid at one of her rallies. So a couple of two young guys, said something about Jesus Christ, their Savior or something. I forgot what they said exactly. And then she calls them out and says, "You're at the wrong rally. It's the small one down the street." Well, how are you going to take that? Yeah. I mean... So maybe this will, because last time you were on the show, we were talking about Christians not voting as a whole. Maybe some of that woke some of those folks up when she said that.
Oh, I have no doubt about it. I mean, it is a form of absolute bigotry. I mean, there's no other way to put it, and it also reflects an insincerity on her own expressions to religious faith, which, by the way, tend to be very muted. But if you were to press her on what her faith is, she would purport to be Christian, even if many of her policies don't align, obviously, at least with Christian teaching. But she's showing signs of intolerance. She's showing signs of prejudice. She's showing signs of disdain for people of faith. And that, to me, is a significant evidence of pure bigotry, just anti-Christian, discriminatory attitude. And I think it's going to harm her because, obviously, there are more Christians in the country than any other faith. And in particular, in swing states like Pennsylvania, there are many Christian voters. She's going to lose North Carolina and Georgia with that kind of rhetoric. And she's going to lose the black church eventually by doing that type of stuff. I think black voters have seen the Democratic Party fail them now for decades, and their policies resulting in nothing but nothing constructive. If you look at the cities, the major cities that are democratically controlled, whether it's Detroit or Chicago, blacks are not doing well there. They are suffering from Democratic policies. And in a lot of the heavy Democratic cities with high African American populations, there is widespread corruption, and this disproportionately impacts the very communities that the Democrats purport to help. And I just think we're in a new moment with information readily available at everybody's fingertips. You don't have to just listen to party leaders for information. You don't have to say, I trust what MSNBC tells me or what CNN tells me. You can go look it up yourself, and you can crunch the numbers. You can get on Twitter and have conversation with anybody else in the world. You can share experiences with other people. People can see videos of what's happening on the ground. And yeah, and anecdotal or experiential evidence is not as good as hard data, but people tend to realize that, even data can be manipulated. And when I see patterns, whether they're through video footage or any sort of semiotic medium, whether we're dealing with print, visual, whatever it is, and I can see patterns happening, and if the data isn't necessarily verifying the reality that I am experiencing every day, I am going to cast doubt on the data, because I'm going to say, okay, well, data is amassed by somebody, and whoever amasses data chooses how that data gets amassed, what they're going to control for, where the data comes from. You can't just get infinite information and plug it in some knowledge machine that produces it out and tells you what to do. Even artificial intelligence, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it is programmed by humans and will generate answers according to whatever inputs humans have placed there. So I think this widespread skepticism is a good thing. I mean, I think it's what the left used to be, was skeptical. When the left was sort of postmodern, and they were nihilist, and they said there is no truth, there's only representation and contingency. Well, at least they were taking a position of skepticism, which was, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. And that's a position that can lead to intellectual humility. But now it's a new regime that is normative, and its language is charged with moral import. And they believe 100% in the rightness of their cause. But what is their cause? That's what I ultimately cannot figure out. There's a fundamental incoherence between ideas like diversity and ideas like equality. If you believe in the infinite variety of human experiences and the fundamental uniqueness of every person, and that certain people have strengths and certain people have weaknesses, when that predicate is multiplied across society, you realize that people end up in different places. You can't get to equality. Equality requires eliminating diversity. It requires uniformity and standardization. Well, what does uniformity or standardization require? It requires some people or group of people authorized to do the leveling, which means that inherently there is no equality of station, because some people are going to enjoy an unequal privilege status to determine for everybody else what equality is going to look like. And it just shows that there's an incoherence to the entire movement, because there can be no equality insofar as somebody is going to be stationed at a level above somebody else in order to try to enforce equal standards or equal stations for the other people that all fall below them, whatever hierarchy you're dealing with. But you can't eliminate hierarchy altogether. That's impossible. That's utopian, and we don't live in a utopian world. So what we would like to do is make all the institutions as fair as possible, so that people fall where they fall based on merit, and they are incentivized to be charitable and philanthropic if they enjoy successes, which tend to be the result of talent, skill, but also, of course, a little bit of luck. Everybody has a little bit of luck, being in the right place at the right time, making the right deal, meeting the right person. That's all a factor as well. But the incentives are what's important. You want to have incentives and institutional fairness so that the system doesn't benefit one group of people or another by design.
Another thing, and you really brought this up. Okay, so another thing is some of their platforms were just stupid. And I've got to say this. I mean, I can't think of another word. Stupid. So let's talk about this one, for instance. Okay, so we've been to college. We paid our way. Okay, we don't even have the debt because we worked 2 jobs going to college, blah, 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 blah. But then again, the Biden-Harris administration wants to go on ahead and let's, the people that owe a lot of money, let's just go on ahead and count it as a zero balance. Okay, all right, you're helping that bunch. You're really helping them. But what about all of us who worked hard and paid for it? That's a slap in the face. That's why I call it a stupid policy, because you're turning off the hard workers. They're going, whoa, wait a minute.
And the hard workers are the ones most likely to vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the things they put in place have not made sense to me. It's just like, what do you want to lose?
Well, and the irony, even from the left-wing perspective, is that the type of person who will most likely enjoy those types of loan forgiveness are wealthy whites who went to law school and medical school and have the means to pay off these loans and haven't done it yet. But they're the types of people that are going to enjoy the benefits of these policies. And so you're not actually raising up the bottom and admitting new people into the middle class, the upper class, whatever. What you're in fact doing is you're making the upper middle class get elevated at the expense of all the other people, and it just doesn't make sense. What from a philosophical and policy standpoint, both, it doesn't make sense to do the student loan bailout. But from a political sense, what they're trying to do is just buy young voters. And that's what essentially you've got a bunch of 20-somethings who say, I got student loans and I'll vote for them just so I won't have student loans anymore. Never mind that I spent, $10,000 in my student loans all 4 years on booze, but
and that's another point is, what did you spend it on? There needs to be an accounting, because let's say now in the business world, the way it would be handled is we'll give you 20% of it back. You won't owe 20%, but now we need an accounting. I want to know what you spent your money on while you were in school.
Yeah,
that's what in a business environment you would do that.
Well, I agree. And I had friends that were in law school who just as a gamble took out some student loans to invest them in capital markets to see if they could beat out their loan interest rate and say, well, I have, I don't have to pay interest on this loan for X number of years. So if I can invest this money in a mutual fund or an ETF for the next 5 years, can I make enough money so that I can pay off the loan, plus I made money with my student loan? I knew people that did that kind of stuff. And that's obviously not what student loans are designed for.
No, that needs to be in places. If you buy a house.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not going to give you $400,000 for a house.
Well, just paying your rent. That's what people are supposed to be using student loans for, is how do I get my groceries? How do I pay my tuition, and how do I pay my rent and pay for my textbooks and these kinds of things, school-related expenses.
Not to party.
It was not to benefit Bud Light.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into a commercial break. It's been over 30 minutes. We're going to have to go into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a minute. Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Jeff McCurdy of the McCurdy Law Firm has been a public service of this area for over 10 years. McCurdy, a member of the Henniger City Council, serves as prosecutor for the town of Sylvania and was named public defender for the city of Rainsville. The McCurdy Law Firm is located at 17326 Alabama Highway 75 in Henniger to better represent his Jackson and DeKalb County clients. If you need to be represented by a true public servant with proven success, call Jeff at 256-996-8701 or send a private email to mccurdylawfirm@gmail.com. No representation is made that the legal services performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers. Good afternoon. We're back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show. This guy right here is really hosting the show. You really got to say this guy's name is Alan Mendenhall, and we've been friends a very long time. And I just love having you on the show because you give the insider view of politics. You give the insider view on finances. You know, what are we in for? I don't know what in the world we're in for. I'm just going to tell you, I feel like it would be two different worlds. If Trump comes in, it'll be I think that it will be even faster. You remember he turned things around pretty darn fast within the month, 1 month. He had more things happening and taken care of than any other president ever. And I think he'll be on speed this time.
Well, I think he probably already has. So he's focusing a lot on the campaign right now, but he has a team of people ready for the transition. Mm-hmm. And I think they've already gotten who knows how many executive orders ready to be deployed on, if not day one, first week. Uh-huh. Those things are ready to just be signed and delivered. That's basically, a lot of those will be undoing what the last administration did by executive order. Mm-hmm. And so nothing to be surprised about there. But I think that the Trump campaign, or Trump himself and the people surrounding him and what would be the transition team learned a lot from the 2016 experience and the transition that took place there, because it was a little chaotic. There were many people who did not have experience in government. Now they have people who proved their trustworthiness over the course of 4 years, and also people who didn't, who won't be invited back. So there's been a weeding out that's taken place, filtering, and there's now a core group of people who enjoy Trump's trust, and I think the transition will be much smoother, and the transition of power will be much different. And I would be very interested in seeing, if Trump wins, as I predict that he will, how the Harris campaign handles the election. Will they allege electoral fraud? Will they accept the results of the election, or will they try to challenge the results? One great thing about the fiasco of the last election is that now I think we can be sure the election is at least more secure than it was before. I mean, fraud happens in every election. It always happens.
It always has.
Fraud entirely. The question is whether the fraud reaches the extent to which it changes an election outcome. And I don't think that will be the case at all this time, because I think so many new measures have been taken, and there will be so much more scrutiny at the polls over the ballots, that this time will be a very different election.
Yeah, but I think they'll do just like Hillary did, just like other folks have done. I think they'll be crying and gnashing of teeth, is what I think. And they're going to be just going, recall everything they said Trump did, they're going to be doing.
They did. It was, the Russian election interference. Remember, it was the Russians' fault that Trump won in 2016.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Russia has more playing ground with this past administration. So I would think that the fix would be in for them instead of Trump. I mean, I really do. If we're Russia.
The world has descended into chaos internationally since the Biden administration took office. And again, you can only blame so much of that on the president of the United States. I readily admit that. But I do think with somebody like Trump in office, foreign leaders have to second guess themselves and think, gosh, that guy is really unpredictable when it comes to foreign policy. And I don't know what he would do if I did X. I don't want to risk that type of retaliation. And there's much to be said for that type of...
right now, it's a free-for-all, Alan. You can do whatever the heck you want to if you're with another country. Under Trump, you're right. They would be second-guessing their move.
Yeah, I remember.
Because Trump plays a good game of chess.
Yeah.
He does.
He does. And if I were Iran, I would be concerned that I might become a parking lot or something, and I'm not suggesting that in any way should happen. I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying that if I were a leader in Iran and Trump became president, I would be acting very differently than I am now, because I would be afraid about what would happen, because I wouldn't know. I would have no idea what a Trump administration would even do in that situation. I mean, the foreign policy of the Trump administration is still kind of a question mark. And a lot of foreign policy experts will tell you that having a question mark foreign policy can be to your strategic advantage as a nation, because if you're unpredictable, people have to treat you differently than if you are predictable.
Absolutely. I just keep going back to the little dictator in North Korea. I mean, you could practically see Trump's thumb down on his foot. I mean, you could, in every photo op, everything, that little dictator was just looking up like I don't know what he's going to do. He had that attitude,
Talking about a region with instability, I mean, we just learned last week that we have North Korean troops in Russia to fight in Ukraine. And of course, North Korea has been lobbing missiles over Japan for as long as I can even remember. They've been provoking, and that's a dangerous situation. I mean, the tensions between North and South Korea have not abated very much at all since the Korean War. The relationship with Japan is as bad as it could get between Japan and North Korea. And you've got the issue with Taiwan and the South China Sea, and even Hong Kong and China. And these all add heightened tensions in Asia when you've got them in the Middle East and Russia, Ukraine. Excuse me.
Well, I want to ask you a question. I know you need to clear your throat out. So this is something that's been weighing on my mind, because you've heard there's going to be a little surprise that could possibly happen. I don't know if the hurricane was the big surprise we're all waiting on. I'm not sure. But is it too late in the game? Because I'm just going to tell you, I could expect anything happening. I know it's just a few days until the election. Is there still this minute possibility, because Kamala's just not doing well? I mean, if her only idea is to talk with you is like Starbucks, Starbucks, listen to me, because my lipstick gets on the white tops right here. So Starbucks, you need to do a black top so my lipstick doesn't show. I mean, if that's your only thing, your only talking point that you have is that, I mean, that doesn't sound too good. So could there still be a last minute surprise? Could they still pull somebody like a Michelle Obama out?
No, I don't think so. And I apologize for my throat. I've been fighting a cold for over a week here, but I didn't think it was going to affect me on the program. But so apologize. No, I don't think at this point. I think they are. They
waited too late because of all the early voting.
And I think they genuinely regret that this played out the way it did. I think they realized that they had to get rid of Biden as a candidate. That wasn't an option. He was going to lose no matter what. But I think they also wished they had fulfilled a process that was different from the one that happened. And most obviously because they ended up with a candidate they know is not as good as a candidate they could have had. And it's a really interesting political moment because of all the major shifts. You see some realignments going on. People like Tulsi going to Republican, Tulsi Gabbard, and people like Elon Musk being involved in politics. People like Tucker Carlson leaving Fox News, but getting a massive following on X or Twitter. People going on podcasts, like Trump going on Joe Rogan's podcast rather than having a rally. These are small events in the grand scheme of things, but they add up to a picture of a transformational shift in politics as to how information gets disseminated and what people want to know about and from politicians.
And let me bring something else up. And this is the hurricane. And we almost touched on it just a few minutes ago. Okay, because I'm from that area. I lived in Charlotte for a long time. And there's something, I have friends who live in Asheville. Okay. Asheville is almost the Atlanta of North Carolina. A lot of libs live there. I feel like they lost those lib voters. I really do. When that hurricane comes in and FEMA has no funds left because they've been giving it to people in other countries. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that was disastrous for the Democrats. FEMA's response was horrible. Elon Musk trying to help the situation and being turned away by the federal government was awful. I don't think there's any way you can suggest that FEMA's response was as swift or as good as it could have been. I recognize that this is a natural disaster. Nobody can stop a hurricane from happening. But on the other hand, you know that this is coming and you know it's going to be bad. You should at a minimum, if you're not going to respond as quickly and as well as you should welcome the assistance of someone like Elon Musk, who's, his assistance was welcome in outer space, but it wasn't welcome here, and it seemed to be a political move. They did not want to give Musk any credit. They wanted to take all the credit, and in trying to take all the credit, they rejected the help needed to fix the situation. And
but something not being publicized, though, is okay. So we go to the Cowboy Church. Philip Gilliland is with the Cowboy Church, the American Fellowship of Cowboy Churches. And so Philip let me know the Monday after the hurricane. He sent me a message and said he was really distraught. And I said, what's wrong? And he said that the Cowboy Church, I mean, they give not only to the local community, but when disasters happen, they get those. They take everything, buses and whatever they can, vans, moving vans, and they will go flood an area when a disaster happens. So they did. They gathered up food, water, gift cards, everything to get their hands on, and stopped at Tennessee. And so some of the churches told Philip that FEMA was actually confiscating their things, like their water and their thing like that. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. And he said, no. He said, they're actually taking products away. This is something I know that happened. Okay, this definitely happened. Why would you, as FEMA, as the director of FEMA, why don't we just welcome all the help you can get? Yes, churches, come on in. Bring your food, bring your water, bring whatever you can to help us out. We need it. But instead they wanted to turn them down.
I have no idea. I would love to hear an explanation, because
I would love an explanation for that.
I have no idea. I don't know why that would happen.
But it did. And so okay, I've heard my grandparents talk about this. We younger folks think welfare and food stamps have been here forever, or whatever you call it now. Well, I used to hear my grandparents talk about this. It hasn't been forever. During the Depression, what would happen is the church and the community would help people that needed to be fed. And I've heard my granddad talk about it a lot of times. Said one time this man was out of work, had a whole bunch of kids, the wife couldn't work. They couldn't make ends meet. So what happened is church got together and helped them with their roof on their house. And they also were gathering food from all over the community. Women were bringing covered dishes and everything else to those people. And I said, so you didn't have food stamps and welfare then? He said, no, we were the food stamps and the welfare. The neighbors got together and helped.
Looking at the big picture of history, this is an important point for the United States, because the 19th century ethic of sort of self-reliance and civic mindedness and community has given way as we've adopted a reliance or dependence on governmentality and bureaucracy. If you look at the Woodrow Wilson sort of model for the administrative state, where it was going to be, you were going to have executive agencies, and they were going to be populated by experts who are supposed to have very specialized knowledge that would relieve everyone else of the responsibility of having to worry about knowing those stuff, because Congress can't know all these different things. You can't be an expert on all these things. And so this would relieve Congress of those responsibilities. Well, this type of mentality has given rise to the administrative state. It is a massive apparatus. It operates essentially as a fourth branch of government, unchecked by the regular executive, legislative, and judicial branches. And in fact, it has within itself all three of those branches. Each administrative agency has an executive head that enforces the law, has a legislative power. They promulgate rules and regulations, and they have their own judiciary with administrative law judges. And that all functions outside of the other three branches, unless, of course, there's a lawsuit that involves an executive agency and brings it into the regular judicial branch. Or, of course, Congress itself can legislate terms about these executive agencies, because they're all creatures of statute. But Congress tends to abdicate its responsibility because there are many, many reasons. One of them is that, let's say, for example, you're a Republican and you don't like the EPA. Well, you can always run against the criticisms of the EPA. Whereas if the EPA is not there, and the EPA is not making all the mistakes it makes. It gives you one less thing to complain about. There are a lot of other incentives, of course, at play, and there are many other reasons why these administrative agencies continue to grow. But the point is, 19th century American civic life, in which we have fraternal orders, mediating institutions, as Alexis de Tocqueville observed during his tour of America, or what Edmund Burke referred to as little platoons. But these civic societies, these clubs, they all have taken a backseat. And now people look first and foremost to government solutions for everything. And we wonder why there's such a divide or fracture among people. And it's partially because they've been deprived of the everyday ways of connecting with each other in the form of community, in the form of neighborliness. And government has sort of extracted or taken over every realm of life, right down to the basic sort of civic association. And that's problematic.
It definitely is. Let's connect a little bit about people being against each other. I mean, that's part of the playbook. We don't want this group to like this group, that one to like that one. So, and this has been going on for centuries, but I'm talking about more prevalent now. Okay, you started in the 60s trying to turn the blacks and the whites against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that didn't work. One of my mother's best friends was Edwina, and we used to think, and she was black, and we used to think if something happened to my parents, we'd probably go live with Edwina. Yeah. Because we were just really close to Edwina and her family. So then you start getting, okay, now we want the blacks against the Hispanics. And that's happened because now the blacks feel left out on some things that the Hispanics are getting. Now they're doing the Haitians and the Hispanics. It's like it never stops. It's like turn groups of people against each other. That's in their playbook. But in the long run, does that always work?
Well,
because when you have the blacks thinking, well, I don't know, the Hispanics are getting better treated than I am. And then you have the Hispanics who are saying, wow, Haitians are being treated better than I am.
Yeah, I think identity politics is problematic for a number of reasons. I mean, I think if you just look at the ancient Aristotelian notion of ethics as judging people based on their actions, because those are manifestations of their intent. Those are external manifestations of something internal, of decision making, and that's the basis on which we evaluate merit, rather than surface level immutable characteristics such as skin color, which people cannot choose. Mm-hmm. If you begin down the road of evaluating people based on the color of their skin, then you are invariably going to adopt programs that are discriminatory based on race. And that's always problematic, no matter when and no matter against whom, because we really want to get to that Aristotelian ethic that evaluates the merit of people based on what they're doing, the goodness or badness of their actions. And if you start looking at people and judging their goodness or badness based on what they look like, is just incredibly problematic. And so I've found that people who are criticizing the state-based laws that are trying to dismantle DEI are very ironic, because they do it assuming they're contributing to the progressive posture, that they're part of some tradition dating back to civil rights. And in fact, what they're doing is rejecting Martin Luther King's dream that the children would be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. In fact, now that people are advocating race-based discrimination, and if you would have asked us, if you think it's good or bad to discriminate against people based on their race, they probably say, oh, I think that's bad. Well, then why are you doing it? Why is that what you advocate? Why not advocate a system that judges people based on their character? And how do you ascertain character? Well, by actions, by behaviors. And that's how you should assess people's contributions to society, and also how you can incentivize good behavior among the populace writ large.
You're spot on. And let's just talk about it. Let's pretend you're a football coach. Okay, so you're going to come up with game plans. Okay, you're going to think of every possible thing that's going to happen with each play that you put into that playbook. The Democrats are not doing that. They're just throwing it out there. They're vomiting weird stuff out on the American public. And one in particular is they always backtrack. Okay, so first of all, you're not supposed to know the difference between a man and a woman. Okay, that's number one. Well, then Kamala comes in. She's running for president. And then they're saying, I'm with her. Well, my question, I thought we weren't supposed to get the story straight. How do you want us to do it? Do you want us to don't do the difference? We don't know the difference between a man and a woman. Or do you want us to? Because they keep going. It's like watching a game of ping pong.
Yeah.
When you watch a Democrat, because you're doing this. Well, no, you want it this way. No, you want it that way. And so we're constantly like, just get real and tell us what is your platform.
Well, and that is a really difficult issue for the Democrats. And another area where they're kind of incoherent is they want to be pro-trans but also pro-woman, and those two positions are incompatible in certain situations. For example, women's sports, and then another area of incoherence is the Israel-Palestine. They don't know how to handle that situation.
Oh, yeah,
that's the one thing I think the Trump campaign has probably not capitalized on sufficiently, is trying to pin the Harris campaign down on what they actually believe in Israel-Palestine, because they have a lot of young voters in the Democratic Party that are very pro-Palestine, and the Democrats don't want to alienate those people, but they also can't alienate Jewish voters either. And to me, there's just no compromise middle ground for the Democratic Party on that issue. And I think Trump has probably not capitalized on that potential seed of division. Not that you want to just politicize a horrible situation or turn it into just a political game for votes. It's a tragic situation, but it's a situation in which the United States has a keen interest, and that is one of the most important things happening on the planet right now. And so how can you not bring it up or emphasize it, or at least figure out where a presidential candidate of all people stands on the issue?
Mm-hmm. Less than 2 minutes, less than a minute and a half left in this segment already. Okay, Mike Pence. Where does Mike Pence stand?
I think he has said he's sitting out this election, and I believe that's what he's doing. I don't know if that means he's not going to vote, or if he's going to vote for a third-party candidate, or maybe a write-in candidate or something like that. My assumption
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. I don't think it'll be. I don't think it'll be Mickey Mouse. I think it'll be. I don't know who it would be, but I'm assuming.
I don't think he knows either.
A write-in candidate or something like that. But it will be interesting to see what he does over the next 4 years. If Trump were to win, I've been up to his headquarters. I actually met him this summer. I think he's a very nice man. He is one of those figures that is very put out by what happened to him at the end of the 2020 election. And so I don't know what he's going to do, but
I think he doesn't have a backbone, and I think he needs to be on America's side is what I think, but who am I? Alan, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your insight. Very wise, very wise. Okay. And you're always one of my go-to people, so I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it too. Thank you for having me on.
And thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time around. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you again, Alan.
Thank you.